solve another system of equations by using the elimination method, also called the linear combinations method. And I just wanted to remind you of the basic steps that you need to keep in mind when you're using this method. First, we want to check that like terms and the equal sign are lined up. So let's look for our x terms to be lined up, and that's correct. That is true. And then our y terms are lined up. That's true. Our equal signs are lined up, and our constant terms are lined up. So that first step is done. Everything's lined up. So that means that the elimination method is going to be a really good method to use. Another thing we need to check for is that we have opposite terms in the two equations. If you don't already have opposite terms, you need to create them, and we're going to use the distributive property to do that. So let's look, do we have opposite terms? In this case, we have x and 4x. Those are not opposite terms. We have negative 3y and negative 3y. Once again, not opposite terms. So that means we have to create the opposite terms, and we're going to use the distributive property to do that. One thing I'm going to say is if you notice that you have exactly the same term, then the easiest thing to do is to change the sign of one of those terms. And you could do that by using the distributive property and multiplying by -1. What that's going to do in that top equation is it's going to make a positive 3y, and then you'll have opposite terms. So let's use the distributive property here. I have -1x. -1 times -3y is positive 3y. And then -1 times 6 is -6. And then I've changed that equation, so now I just have these two to think about. Now I have opposite terms. My opposite terms are -3y and positive 3y. So that's good. Now I'm going to add the equations, and the goal of adding the equations is that either the x's or the y's, one of them will just get eliminated. So we have 4x plus -1x, which is 3x. And then we have -3y plus positive 3y. Those cancel out. They're eliminated. That's exactly what we want. And then 10 plus -6 is 4. My fourth step is to go ahead and solve so that you get a value for x or y. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3, and I'll get x equals 4/3. And then lastly, we're going to use step 4 to solve for the other variable. So we know what x is equal to, but we need to know what y is equal to. So let's go ahead and just take one of our equations. It doesn't matter which one you take. You can take the top one, that's fine. And we're going to try to use this equation and our x value in order to solve for this y value. So we'll substitute in our x value, which is 4/3. And we can simplify this fraction by making it 16/3. One thing you guys want to do at this point is get rid of your fraction by multiplying, do a fraction buster, multiply by this denominator, and that'll make it so your fraction is eliminated, and then you won't have to deal with common denominators and all that kind of stuff. So we can solve for y now. We're solving for the other variables. So subtract 16 and divide by -9, and you'll get your y value. And then some of you might want to change these fractions into decimals. That's totally fine to do. If you want to change it into a decimal, 4/3 is the same as 1.33, and -14/9 is the same as -1.55. Well, actually, if I rounded it up properly, it would be 1.56. So another thing you can do, this is my solution. Another thing you can do is check on Desmos. So what I'm going to do when I check on Desmos is I'm going to graph these two equations that I started with, and I'm going to verify that they cross each other at this point. And if I look, it's 1.335 x value and negative 1.56 for my value. And that is exactly what I got when I solved elimination. If you change these decimals, they're exactly the same. So we know that we got the right answer.